what this bill would do is really provide the CRTC the authority to determine, how content is presented to Canadians, what they are able to choose from.
So did you hear? The government of Canada is trying to regulate the internet and platforms like YouTube and Netflix. And many people are concerned, some are in favor, but a lot are asking why, and is there even a need to? Hey, welcome to News You Can Use. I'm your host, Brandon Gomez. And today we're talking about the very controversial Bill C11. Now, before we get into all of those details, I do need you to do a few things, like subscribing to this channel, tapping that notification bell, smashing that like button, and don't forget to follow us across all of our social media. The details are in the description below. So what is Bill C11, and how could it affect government regulations surrounding freedom on the internet? Well, today I'm speaking to Jeanette Patel from YouTube to discuss the bill and what it means for Canadians creating content online and for you, the viewers, watching content online. Let's bring her in. Bill C11, everybody's talking about it, well, if you're in Ottawa, but for Canadians, a lot of people are trying to figure out what does this mean for them. So I want to start off, what is even Bill C11?
Bill C11 effectively would expand Canada's broadcasting rules and policy to the online environment.
Because right now, many Canadians know this, like traditional broadcasters like CTV, Global, City TV, CBC, they're regulated by the government through the CRTC.
Right.
But right now, online platforms like YouTube and Facebook, they are not.
Not in the same way, right? So obviously we have to follow the laws in Canada. But with regards to the CRTC, the CRTC sets certain rules for broadcasters like Bell or Rogers, including on things like having to have a certain amount of Canadian content in their repertoire and their programming. Yeah. And so that's what is being contemplated or proposed to be applied to platforms like YouTube or these other streaming platforms.
But okay, that's interesting, because for people probably watching this, they're like, well, I mean, you guys have a lot of Canadian content already. I mean, News You Can Use, the BG Show's Canadian content.
That's right.
Lily saying it's Canadian content. So why would they need to do this? Like, what is their purpose? The government's purpose behind this, the motivation?
Fundamentally, it's really well-intentioned. I think they're looking at the kind of evolution of how Canadians are creating and consuming content, and they're trying to update the laws to reflect that. Taking the rules that were designed for television or radio and trying to apply them to the technology, the ecosystem, the content from people like you in the 21st century actually doesn't make so much sense and can actually be harmful.
In what ways? Like, what do you mean by that?
A couple of ways. Yeah. Let's talk about kind of the two biggest communities that YouTube cares about the most. Creators.
Hello.
And viewers, right? So right now, for viewers, when they come to YouTube, they know that they're going to be able to find the content that they love, right? So if I go in and I search for something, I'm going to get the content that is most relevant to that search, and I'm going to get the suggestions of things that I will probably find relevant or interesting for me as a viewer. For creators, they count on being able to connect with a global audience, right? So that you can put the content that you want to create onto the platform and compete on a level playing field to reach those global audiences. And our concern is that, that whole kind of authentic and organic environment could be put at risk, because what this bill would do is really provide the CRTC the authority to determine, how content is presented to Canadians, what they are able to choose from. And so, you could go from an environment where today, viewers are connecting with the content that they love, and creators are being recommended to viewers who will love them no matter where they are in the world. And all of that could be kind of disrupted.
The big thing about YouTube is that Canadian creators specifically, and anywhere around the world, can access that global audience.
Right.
Billions of people rather than just, 37 million people that live in Canada. So would this Bill C11, restrict that access to that global audience, or could it potentially do that?
On YouTube, there's about 2 billion monthly logged in users, right? That's an enormous audience that every single Canadian creator has access to for free, right? We know that Canadian creators depend on that because about 90% of their watch time comes from those international audiences. So it's really important that we don't put that at risk. Our system is all geared around audience signals, right? And with 500 hours of content uploaded every minute to YouTube, we have to apply the learnings from those audience signals at a global scale really quickly. So, we depend on having the feedback from viewers on that content to understand how viewers around the world would like that content. So our concern here is that ultimately, if we're mismatching and we're putting content in front of Canadians because the CRTC decided that that's what should be put to the front of the line, that actually kind of would backfire for creators. The signals would get corrupted, and ultimately, you would have global audiences wouldn't be seeing that same content.
Now, I know for the government, one of their justifications for this is that they want to see smaller Canadian creators reach a Canadian audience. They believe that this is going to help grow those smaller creators and give them access to the Canadian community.
Let me talk about two things. I think fundamentally what this would do is it picks winners and losers, right? Like who gets put at the front of the line, and it puts creators, I think, one against the other.
Right.
The second thing is that the system, there is a system already, right? The CRTC has rules around what is Canadian enough, and they're quite complex. There's a lot of paperwork around it. And our concern is that if you applied those rules to determining, who goes up and who goes down, that would really put smaller creators at a disadvantage to large media companies. Because keep in mind, there's creators like you, and you would be competing with other large media companies that also put their content on YouTube.
So I might be competing with the CTVs and the
global? Absolutely, right? And so those companies have teams of lawyers, they know the rules, they've been playing by those rules for decades. And if you try and put that into the creator ecosystem, where every video has to be qualified to meet those rules, we think that really puts smaller creators at a huge disadvantage.
Well, we have heard from smaller creators that they are concerned about the CRTC deciding what is Canadian enough and what isn't, especially when it has been shown in the past that the CRTC sometimes is stacked with former Bell and Rogers employees. But from a YouTube perspective, what does that mean what's YouTube's interest in this?
We love Canadian creators, right? We see they're some of our top performers in terms of global reach, which is really quite incredible. In 2020, we saw that in the middle of a pandemic, Canadian channels earning over 6 figures on YouTube grew by over 30%.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's huge, right? And it's like you look at every piece of the ecosystem and Canadian creators are thriving. Keep in mind, it's not just YouTube, right? This is all digital audio-visual platforms.
Oh, so this could apply to TikTok and this could apply to...
100%, right? So it's like, it's the TikToks, it's your subscription services like Netflix or Disney Plus or Apple Music, right? Like everything stands to be impacted or to change by this bill.
Where is Bill C11 right now? Like, is it close to being passed? Can people do anything about it at this point? Where do we stand?
Well, it feels like it's on a bit of a fast track. So right now it's at a really critical moment because it's in what's called the committee hearings, at the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage in the House of Commons. And they're hearing from witnesses now, and then it's going to go to the Senate, but everything seems to be really accelerated. And so this, this could all be wrapped up by the end of June.
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of people who are going to watch us and say, is this a new iteration of Bill C-11? Was this a new iteration of that? Because there was a lot of headlines about that, and there was a lot of Canadians a little bit nervous about government regulation of the internet.
Well, it is, right? It's kind of like deja vu all over again. If you think back with Bill C-10, it kind of came as a shock, right?
Yeah.
Because everything was going ahead, and then they made this sudden change late in the game, and they all of a sudden social media content was in the bill. And like you said, Canadians got concerned and creators got concerned. And ultimately, I think that public pushback really was impacted how that bill, didn't pass. So Bill C11 is kind of version 2.0. And
better or worse, in your opinion?
More or less the same.
Okay.
Right? So we were really hopeful at the outset that the government would hear the concerns from creators and from Canadians, and that they would reflect that in the bill.
To wrap this all up, I'd like to offer our viewers a solution. So, and as somebody who's just trying to see both sides of the, the coin here, with the government stance on, we really want to help, smaller Canadian creators reach an audience, and YouTube stance and other, social platform, online platform stance, well, they have this opportunity to reach a global audience.
Yeah.
What is the solution then to meet in the middle? Is there a solution that could be in the middle?
We all have this aligned interest in helping Canadian creators succeed. YouTube wins when Canadian creators win, right? And so whether that's on helping them understand how to optimize on the platform, like, this is a job. The investments that we make today and can make tomorrow around helping Canadian creators do that. We also see a lot of opportunity, in the commercial music space. So, the minister said that if a song by The Weeknd is found on Spotify and on YouTube, then that song should be kind of regulated similarly. And we're totally okay with that. So we think that, we can find a path that is more clearly targeted at how do we support Canadian music on YouTube, without sacrificing or putting at risk the ecosystem, the authentic and organic experience that viewers and creators depend on when they come to YouTube. And so I think that's just a matter of having some really explicit language and carve-outs in the bill for user-generated content like yours.
All right. Jeanette, thank you so much for your time and for breaking that all down for us.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here.
And let me know, what do you guys think about Bill C-11? Are you in favor? Are you against? Or do you just want it to come to an end? Drop your thoughts in the comment section right now. Hey BG Squad, thanks so much for checking out our channel. And listen to this, we have more great content for you, like this video right here and this video right here. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to this channel right now and tap that notification bell.